Okay, so when we talk about academic debatings, actually there are a lot of styles. So we can have the British parliamentary style, like you can see in the screen. Hello everyone, welcome back to my video. I am Suprayogi from Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia. Okay, so in these editions, we are going to discuss more about the argumentation strategy for academic speaking class. We are going to focus on parliamentary debating for academic speaking practice. All right, so the objective of these sessions is that number one, you are familiar with the context of academic debatings. And then number two is that you're able to construct arguments comprehensively. So everyone, when we talk about academic debatings, usually it will be related to academic competitions that we have in Indonesia or even in Southeast Asian context, and then Asian context, European context, or even the world context. So we try to have a lesson learned from that debating competitions, that we see that it's very practical for the students to build their argumentations, to build their logic and reasoning, and in the end, they can apply in their daily life context, in their work later, and also in their speaking practice later, especially in the context of English speaking practice. Okay, so when we talk about academic debatings, actually there are a lot of styles. So we can have the British parliamentary style, like you can see in the screen, that in British parliamentary style, there are 4 teams in one chamber, and it consists of a government team, 2 teams, and then opposition teams also 2 teams. So we call them as the opening governments, opening opposition, closing governments, and also the closing oppositions. In this context, you are required to speak for about 7 minutes at maximum. And for the practice, our practice, I think that 5 minutes is already sufficient. Yeah. So the role of the speaker for the British parliamentary system is that we start from the Prime Minister and then move to the Leader of Opposition, Deputy Prime Minister, and then Deputy Leader of Oppositions. So that's called the opening debate, because it's conducted by all the opening team, both opening governments and also opening oppositions. Then let's move to the closing team. From the Deputy Leader of Oppositions, then let's move to the member of the governments, and then member of opposition, and then government whip, and the last is opposition whip. So what actually the basic principle of the British parliamentary system, that although that you are in the same government branch, for example, you're opening government, closing government, you should not bring the same perspective. So the closing governments or the closing opposition, your idea should be different from the opening government and the opening opposition. Okay? So we call this as the extension arguments. Extension argument can be brand new arguments or further elaborations, an example of what your opening team has already brought, but not exactly the same idea, but it can be from the different layers of the perspective. Okay? Right. Beside the British parliamentary system, we also have what we call as the Asian parliamentary system, or 3-on-3. So there are 2 teams, government and opposition, and there are 3 speakers, 3 persons, first speaker, second speaker, and third speaker. So what makes it different from the British parliamentary is that you have the closing session. We call it as the reply speaker. So the reply speaker only speak for about 3 to 4 minutes. Meanwhile, the main speaker speak for about 5 to 7 minutes. And the role is that first speaker of the governments, and then first speaker of the opposition, second speaker of the governments, second speaker of the opposition, third speaker of the governments, and then third speaker of the oppositions, and then reply speaker starting from the opposition, and the last one is that the reply speaker from the governments. So when it comes to the reply speech, it started from the opposition side, then it's closed by the reply speaker of the governments. Now let's talk more about the role of each speaker. Okay, let's talk about the government side, the first speaker. That your rules, number one is like define the motion, what actually happening right now, and then why the current solution, like the solution right now, doesn't work, then what you will propose or what is your objective. So when we have the motions, the motion actually answer of the problems exist right now. And then after that, you can state your first arguments, provide with analysis, state your second arguments, provide the analysis. If you have more arguments, it's okay, but it's better to be given to the second speaker. And the last one, you sum up the case. Right, now move to the first speaker of the opposition team. The first speaker of the opposition is that you at first respond the first speaker's case and state your solutions and your stance, like what you want, and then the objective. Then state your first arguments, then provide the analysis, state your second arguments and provide the analysis, and sum up the case. Now we move to the second speaker of the government team. So before you move to the arguments, respond the opposition's first speaker's case first, and then directly continue your arguments. Or it can be you strengthen the first speaker arguments, or you can provide extensions using a new analysis and example, then sum up the case, right? And then the second speaker of the opposition team has the role to respond all the government's speakers. First speaker of government and second speaker of the government respond their case. And after that, state your arguments and extensions or analysis, and also rebuild your arguments, what your speakers has said, and then sum up the case. Okay, so now we move to the third speaker. Third speaker of the government has the role to respond all the opposition case, like first speaker and second speaker of the opposition, and compare the big pictures, what is actually the debate about. You're not allowed to bring new points. New points here is that you bring the new perspective totally different because it's considered as a late case. Okay, so this is just a game. So remember that you could only deliver what the first and second speakers maybe with further example, but no new points. So as the third speaker of the opposition team. So the third speaker of the opposition teams is that you should respond first, second, and third speaker of the governments, and after that, give also the big pictures. Okay? Then all the main speakers have already delivered their idea. Now we move to reply speaker of the opposition side first. Okay, so the reply speaker, both opposition and government, has the role, to compare the major clash, the major discussion in the debate. So at first, you explain what the government has already claimed, and then add with your claims and state that why your claims better than the government's. Okay? And then if you find the arguments that may be not well responded by governments or not well identified by the governments, then you can elaborate here to show what government is lacking. Okay? And also, for the reply speaker of the governments, explain why that government team bring more intensive discussions and contributions to the whole debate. So talk about what opposition has said, and then explain directly what actually the government have already analyzed, and why by that analysis is better than the opposition team. After that, if you also find the major discussions that not well responded or important idea that is not well responded, then you should state here. Okay? Right, so those are the role of the first, second, third speaker as well as the replies. All right, so usually in the debate, you will have the topics or motion. So the topic is actually the resolution or solutions toward a certain issue. Okay, so for example, I give you the topic in a post-COVID-19 Indonesia. This house would prioritize revitalizing rural growth like real sectors and agricultural sectors over urban office employment. So now we'll give you some tips what to do when you get the topics. Number one is that you should be able to identify what is actually the problem, why then this motion appears. Like you should be able to explain what is the debate about. Remember that this debate should be balanced perspective from the government team and also the opposition team. So as a government, you cannot play safe that you have the major points of discussion, meanwhile the opposition do not have the chance or room for the debate. So make them equal. Number two is that identify the purpose of the both team. And then identify the problems or the solution in current condition. And then identify the actors involved in the debate, like governments, society, company, and it actually depends on the motions. And then identify the perspectives of the arguments. Right, for example, let's talk about the purpose of the both theme. For example, as the government in a post-COVID-19 Indonesia, this house would prioritize revitalizing rural growth over the urban office employments. Then as a government team, the purpose is that by prioritizing rural growth, the national economics will be better. Or if you are the opposition, then your purpose of the debate and then your case of the debate should lead into by prioritizing the urbans of the office employments, then the national economic conditions will be recovered sooner. Yeah, so you have different goals or purpose of the debate. Next one, let's talk about the actors' justification arguments. So let's identify the actors. So when we talk about recovery of the COVID-19, we talk about the governments, we talk about company in urban areas, maybe company or small industry in rural areas. We talk about employed society, we talk about poor society, and many more. Then you can give strong elaborative reasons why these actors deserve certain attentions and why these actors is very important in the debate. For example, when we talk about governments, it means that government is the party that is responsible for the country's developments in real sectors or non-real sectors. And also, government is responsible to alleviate poverty. That's why the government has the right to prioritize the urban or rural, for example. Okay? And then when we talk about company in urban areas, you can give the characteristic, like the features or anatomy of things that we have discussed earlier. Company urban area, the characteristic is that they are having massive efficiency in human resources. Then they have capital loss due to the COVID-19 because of the low number of sales, for example. Okay, and you can compare one actors to other actors. Which one should be prioritized in this context? So the next one is, let's come into the basic argumentation itself. So when we talk about a good argumentation, it should fulfill 5 layers. Number one is the assertions or statement of the claims. And then number 2 is the reasoning, like your reasons and the justification why this thing is important and why is that so. And the evidence means that support of your reasons by giving the data, statistic, real examples, and many more. And the last one, you should do the link back. The link back means that you do the restatement why it is then important. All right, so now let's take a look at the detail about the justification arguments. Okay, imagine that you are a government team. This is your arguments. It will develop the more farming methods for better agricultural outcomes. That's the assertions. And the reason is that currently the farmers do not have enough financial capital to upgrade their farmings, like to buy tractors, to buy fertilizers, or to buy the seeds and manage the rice fields. So by prioritizing to these farmers, it means that the government will allocate the funding to them. So in the end, the farmers can use that funding to buy tractors, fertilizer, to improve the management of the rice field so that they can be more productive. For example, they have now the budget to manage their rice field, to pay the labor, and then to buy quality fertilizer, and it results into the increase of quality and quantity of the rice or the crops. Therefore, then we move to link back, yeah. Therefore, the budget allocations given to the farmer from the government is very strategic. So link back is useful to link to what the motion wants and what you want to say in the debate. Because your rule is to say that prioritizing the urban area is better than rural area. Now imagine if you are the opposition team. Okay, so you will say that the priority right now should go to the manufacturing industry, because in manufacturing industry, mostly allocated in urban area, they did massive fire and the existing employee cannot work overtime for the additional income. That's the assertions. What are the reasons? Manufacturing industry is the industry absorb massive labors. It means that this industry play very crucial role in employment. When government give additional funding to the manufacturer, it will make, number one, new recruitment of the labor. Number two, the company will be running where the goods and products can be sold to the markets. Okay? And that example, that they still produce house equipments, textile that will be used by other industry, company, or common peoples. And then the link back is that, so by helping manufacturing industry, it will create the strategic impacts for the employments and also for the distributions of goods and services. So in the context of debate, we do not have the war, but we learn the debate to see from other people's shoes or to see from other people's perspective. So both of the team, like governments and opposition, have the same chance. But the thing is that those who will be heard more, those will be getting a higher point, is those who can answer comprehensively using the argumentation from assertion, reasons, example, and also link back. Okay, so that's the basic role fulfillments and layer fulfillments of the arguments to make you more heard by others, to make you more considered by maybe the juries, by the examiners for the purpose later. Okay, so this is the end of our discussions about parliamentary debate. I hope that it will give you a basic insight about what to do when you become a team, governments and opposition in the debate, and how to build that arguments, and what are actually the characteristics of good arguments, and to make it comprehensive from multiple perspectives. Okay, see you in the next video. I close this session.
Terima kasih sudah menyaksikan video pembelajaran ini. Jangan lupa like, komen, dan subscribe, serta nyalakan tanda loncengnya agar kalian tidak ketinggalan informasi update lainnya.
somebody else above you. I hate somebody else.